In a world where everyone is constantly watching everyone else, very few people ever discover where real power actually comes from. People compare, compete, criticize, and constantly seek approval from others, believing that happiness will come from being noticed or admired. But the Buddha taught something very different. Real strength begins the moment you stop looking outward and start looking inward. When you focus on your own growth instead of everyone else's life, your mind becomes calm, your direction becomes clear, and your power begins to grow in ways most people never understand. In this video, you will learn 7 powerful Buddhist lessons that will help you focus on yourself and finally unlock the strength that has always been within you. 1. The mind that watches others cannot see itself. Many people spend most of their lives watching what everyone else is doing. They compare their success, their progress, their relationships, and even their happiness with the lives of others. Slowly, without realizing it, their attention moves away from their own growth and becomes trapped in the outside world. The Buddha taught that the restless mind that constantly looks outward is one of the main reasons people lose their peace. When your attention is always focused on other people, your energy becomes scattered and your clarity disappears. The moment you begin turning your attention back toward yourself, everything starts to change. You begin noticing your own thoughts, your habits, and your patterns. This awareness becomes the beginning of wisdom. When you stop watching everyone else and start understanding your own mind, you begin gaining control over your life. Real power does not come from observing the world around you. It comes from understanding the mind within you. 2. Comparison is the fastest way to lose your peace. Comparison quietly destroys the peace of the mind, often without people realizing it. When someone constantly looks at the lives of others, their attention slowly moves away from their own growth. They begin noticing what others have, what others achieve, and how others appear to be moving ahead in life. Even when their own life is improving, the mind starts whispering that it is not enough. This feeling does not come from reality. It comes from the habit of comparing. The Buddha explained that comparison is a form of suffering created by the ego. The ego wants to measure worth through status, success, and recognition. It makes people believe that their value depends on being better than someone else. Because of this, even a small comparison can create dissatisfaction. A person may have a stable life, good health, and opportunities for growth, yet one glance at someone else's achievements can suddenly make them feel behind. When you focus only on yourself, comparison slowly begins to lose its influence. Instead of constantly looking at other people's progress, you begin paying attention to your own journey. You start asking a different question. Am I becoming wiser, calmer, and stronger than I was before? This shift in thinking is powerful because it replaces competition with growth. Every person walks a different path in life. People grow at different speeds, face different struggles, and carry different responsibilities. Trying to compare 2 lives that are completely different only creates unnecessary pressure inside the mind. The moment you stop measuring yourself against others and start measuring yourself against your past self, your mind begins to feel lighter, progress becomes clearer, and peace begins to return. 3. Your energy is too valuable to waste on everyone. Your attention is one of the most powerful forms of energy you possess. Wherever your attention goes, your time, emotions, and mental strength slowly follow. Many people do not realize how much of their energy is spent thinking about other people's behavior, opinions, and problems. They replay conversations in their minds, worry about what others think of them, or become involved in unnecessary drama that adds no real value to their lives. Over time, this constant distraction drains the mind and leaves very little energy for personal growth. The Buddha taught that protecting the mind is an important part of living wisely. Not every situation deserves your reaction, and not every person deserves your attention. When you give your energy to every small conflict or negative opinion, your mind becomes restless and tired. However, when you begin focusing on yourself, your priorities slowly change. Instead of wasting your attention on things you cannot control, you start directing it toward learning, improving your habits, and strengthening your inner peace. This shift may seem small at first, but its effects are powerful. The more carefully you use your energy, the more clarity you gain about what truly matters in your life. Your mind becomes calmer, your focus becomes stronger, and your progress becomes clearer. When you understand that your energy is valuable, you naturally stop giving it away to everything and everyone around you. 4. The person who masters himself becomes unshakable. Many people believe that power comes from controlling other people, winning arguments, proving others wrong, or gaining influence in the world. Society often teaches that strength means dominating situations and showing authority over others. But the wisdom of the Buddha points in a completely different direction. True power does not come from controlling the outside world. Real power comes from mastering the world inside your own mind. Most of the struggles people experience in life are not actually created by external events. They are created by uncontrolled reactions. A small criticism can ruin someone's entire day. A disagreement can turn into anger that lasts for hours. A simple failure can create deep frustration and self-doubt. These reactions happen because the mind has not yet learned how to remain steady when situations become difficult. When a person focuses only on themselves, they slowly begin to observe how their own mind works. They start noticing the emotions that arise in different situations. They begin seeing how anger, fear, and insecurity appear inside the mind. This awareness becomes the first step toward mastery. The moment you begin observing your reactions, you gain the ability to change them. The Buddha taught that a disciplined mind is stronger than any external power. When you learn to pause before reacting, you begin creating space between the situation and your response. In that space, wisdom begins to grow. Instead of reacting immediately with anger, you learn patience. Instead of becoming upset by criticism, you learn understanding. Instead of feeling threatened by challenges, you begin seeing them as opportunities to grow. As this inner discipline develops, something remarkable begins to happen. Situations that once disturbed you no longer have the same effect. Negative words from others lose their power. Stressful circumstances become easier to handle. Your mind becomes calmer, clearer, and more stable. This does not mean life becomes free from challenges, but it means your inner state is no longer controlled by every difficulty you face. A person who masters themselves becomes unshakable because their stability comes from within. Their confidence does not depend on approval from others. Their peace does not depend on perfect circumstances. Their strength comes from understanding their own mind and learning how to guide it wisely. When you focus your attention on mastering yourself rather than controlling others, you begin building a powerful inner foundation. And once that foundation becomes strong, the outside world loses its ability to easily disturb your peace. This is the quiet strength that the Buddha described, the strength of a mind that remains steady, aware, and balanced no matter what happens around it. 5. The more you improve yourself, the less you need to impress anyone. Many people live with a quiet pressure inside their minds. They feel the need to prove themselves to others. They want people to see their success, their intelligence, their achievements, and their value. Because of this, they spend a large part of their lives trying to impress others. They work harder not because they love growth, but because they want recognition. They speak not to express truth, but to gain approval. Slowly, their sense of worth becomes connected to how others see them. The Buddha taught that this desire for approval is one of the subtle chains that keeps the mind restless. When your happiness depends on being admired or praised, your peace becomes fragile. One compliment can make you feel confident, but one criticism can suddenly shake your confidence. This happens because your identity is being shaped by the opinions of other people rather than by your own understanding of yourself. When a person begins focusing on improving themselves instead of impressing others, something very powerful begins to happen inside the mind. The motivation for growth becomes internal rather than external. You no longer work hard just to be noticed. You work hard because you understand the value of discipline, learning, and self-development. Your progress becomes personal rather than performative. This shift creates a deeper form of confidence. When your focus is on self-improvement, you begin noticing small but meaningful changes in your life. Your habits become stronger, your thinking becomes clearer, your emotional reactions become calmer. Over time, you begin respecting yourself more because you see the effort you are putting into becoming a better person. As this inner confidence grows, the need to impress others naturally begins to fade. You stop feeling the urge to prove your worth in every conversation. You stop explaining yourself to people who do not understand your journey. You stop seeking constant validation from others. Instead, your attention stays focused on your own path and your own growth. The Buddha explained that a wise person does not chase praise or run away from criticism. They simply continue walking their path with awareness and discipline. When you are deeply focused on improving your mind, your habits, and your character, other people's opinions begin to lose their power over you. In fact, something interesting begins to happen. The less you try to impress others, the more genuine your presence becomes. People sense authenticity when someone is not constantly seeking approval. Your actions begin to speak louder than your words. Your growth becomes visible, not because you are trying to show it, but because it naturally appears in the way you think, behave, and live. When you truly focus on improving yourself, life becomes simpler and more peaceful. Your worth is no longer determined by applause or criticism. Your confidence comes from knowing that every day you are becoming a little wiser, a little calmer, and a little stronger than before. And once a person reaches that point, they no longer need the world's approval to feel valuable. 6. Silence and focus create inner strength. In the modern world, the human mind is constantly surrounded by noise. There are endless conversations, opinions, arguments, and distractions competing for attention every single day. People feel pressured to respond to everything, to react to every message, to involve themselves in every discussion, and to constantly stay connected to what others are doing. Over time, this constant stimulation slowly weakens the mind. It becomes difficult to concentrate, difficult to reflect, and difficult to truly understand oneself. The Buddha often spoke about the importance of silence because silence gives the mind the space it needs to become clear. When a person spends too much time surrounded by noise and distraction, the mind becomes restless and scattered. Thoughts jump from one thing to another, emotions become unstable, and the ability to think calmly begins to fade. Silence, on the other hand, allows the mind to settle. When external noise becomes quiet, internal awareness begins to grow. When you begin focusing more on yourself, you naturally start reducing unnecessary noise in your life. This does not mean you completely disconnect from the world or avoid people. It means you become more selective about where your attention goes. You begin recognizing that not every conversation needs your involvement, and not every opinion deserves your reaction. By stepping away from unnecessary distractions, your mind slowly begins to regain its strength. Silence creates the conditions for deeper understanding. When the mind is quiet, you begin noticing your thoughts more clearly. You become aware of the patterns that control your reactions. You start recognizing which habits strengthen your life and which habits quietly weaken it. This awareness becomes a powerful tool for growth because it allows you to make conscious changes instead of repeating unconscious behaviors. Focus works together with silence to build inner strength. When your attention is not constantly divided between many distractions, your mind becomes sharper and more disciplined. You begin completing tasks with greater clarity and patience. Instead of rushing through life in a state of constant reaction, you move through situations with intention and calm awareness. Over time, this combination of silence and focus creates a powerful transformation inside the mind. Your emotions become easier to manage because you understand them more clearly. Your thoughts become more organized because your attention is no longer scattered. Your decisions become wiser because they come from reflection instead of impulse. The Buddha taught that a peaceful mind is not created by controlling the outside world, but by learning how to guide your own attention. When you reduce unnecessary noise and strengthen your focus, you create an inner environment where wisdom can grow. In that quiet space, the mind becomes stable, aware, and strong. A person who develops this inner strength does not feel overwhelmed by the constant activity of the world. They are able to listen without absorbing negativity, observe without reacting impulsively, and move through life with steady awareness. Silence and focus become their source of clarity, allowing them to build a life guided by calm understanding rather than by constant distraction. 7. The life you want begins the moment you turn inward. Most people spend their entire lives searching for happiness in the outside world. From a young age, they are taught that success, relationships, recognition, and achievements will eventually bring them peace. They believe that once they gain enough money, once they meet the right people, or once they reach a certain level of success, they will finally feel complete. Because of this belief, their attention remains constantly directed outward. They chase opportunities, approval, and validation, hoping that one day something outside of them will fill the quiet emptiness they sometimes feel inside. However, the Buddha taught a very different truth. He explained that the peace people are searching for cannot truly be found in the outside world, because the outside world is always changing. Situations change, people change, opportunities appear and disappear, and circumstances constantly move in unpredictable directions. If your happiness depends entirely on these external conditions, then your peace will always feel unstable. One good event may bring temporary joy, but the next difficulty can easily disturb the mind again. This is why the Buddha emphasized the importance of turning inward. When a person begins to observe their own mind, they start discovering something very important. Many of the struggles they believed were caused by the outside world are actually created by the mind itself. The mind creates expectations about how life should unfold. It becomes attached to certain outcomes. It clings to certain people, achievements, and ideas. When reality does not match those expectations, disappointment and frustration begin to appear. Turning inward allows a person to understand these patterns. Instead of constantly blaming circumstances, they begin observing how their own thoughts shape their experience of life. They notice how certain thoughts create stress, while other thoughts create calm. They begin seeing how attachment, fear, and insecurity influence the way they react to situations. This awareness becomes the beginning of true freedom. When a person develops the habit of looking inward, their relationship with life begins to change. Instead of chasing happiness outside, they begin cultivating peace within their own mind. They start practicing patience, self-awareness, and discipline. They begin questioning the habits and beliefs that once controlled them without their awareness. At first, this process may feel uncomfortable. Looking inward requires honesty. It requires the willingness to see parts of the mind that may have been ignored for years. A person may begin noticing how often their thoughts are driven by fear of judgment or by the desire for approval. They may see how certain habits keep them stuck in cycles of frustration or dissatisfaction. But this awareness is not something to fear. In fact, it is the doorway to transformation. The moment you begin understanding your own mind, you gain the power to guide it in a wiser direction. Instead of reacting automatically to every situation, you begin choosing your responses with awareness. Instead of allowing negative thoughts to dominate your attention, you begin learning how to observe them calmly without being controlled by them. As this inner awareness grows stronger, something remarkable begins to happen. Your sense of stability becomes less dependent on the outside world. You begin realizing that peace is not something you need to chase. It is something you can cultivate within yourself through understanding, discipline, and awareness. This does not mean you stop caring about life or stop pursuing goals. Instead, it means your goals become healthier and more balanced. You continue working, growing, and building your life, but your sense of worth is no longer tied to every success or failure. You understand that challenges are part of growth, and setbacks no longer feel like the end of your journey. When you turn inward, you also begin understanding your true priorities more clearly. Many people spend years chasing things that do not truly matter to them because they are influenced by the expectations of society or the opinions of others. But when you learn to observe your own mind, you begin recognizing what truly brings meaning and fulfillment into your life. Your decisions become guided by clarity rather than by pressure. Over time, this inner clarity changes the way you move through the world. You become less reactive and more thoughtful. Instead of constantly trying to control every outcome, you learn how to move with patience and awareness. You stop wasting energy worrying about things that are outside your control and begin focusing on the actions and attitudes that strengthen your life. Another powerful change happens when you turn inward. You begin developing a deeper relationship with yourself. Many people spend years trying to understand others while rarely taking time to understand their own thoughts and emotions. But when you give attention to your own inner world, you begin developing self-respect and self-trust. You learn to listen to your intuition, recognize your strengths, and acknowledge the areas where growth is needed. This self-understanding gradually builds confidence that is very different from the confidence people seek through external achievements. External success can always fluctuate, but self-awareness creates a stability that remains steady even when circumstances change. The Buddha often reminded his students that true freedom comes from understanding the mind. When you understand how your thoughts and emotions work, you are no longer trapped by them. You become the observer rather than the prisoner of your own thinking. As you continue practicing this inward awareness, your life begins to transform in subtle but powerful ways. You start making choices that align with your values rather than choices that are driven by fear or pressure. You begin letting go of unnecessary worries that once consumed your energy. You begin appreciating simple moments of peace that once went unnoticed. Gradually, you realize something profound. The life you were searching for was never hidden somewhere far away. It begins the moment you develop awareness of your own mind. It begins the moment you stop chasing constant validation from the outside world and start building clarity within yourself. When you turn inward, you stop living on autopilot. You stop allowing habits, fears, and expectations to guide your life without question. Instead, you begin living with intention. Every decision becomes more conscious. Every action becomes more aligned with the person you are becoming. This is where real transformation begins, not in dramatic external changes, but in the quiet shift of awareness within the mind. When your mind becomes clear and focused on growth, the direction of your entire life begins to change. The Buddha's teachings remind us that peace, wisdom, and strength are not distant goals waiting somewhere in the future. They are qualities that begin to develop the moment you start understanding yourself. And when that understanding grows, you begin building a life that is stable, meaningful, and deeply fulfilling. The life you want does not begin when everything around you becomes perfect. It begins the moment you turn inward and begin shaping your own mind with awareness, patience, and wisdom. That is where real power begins, and that is where a truly peaceful life starts to unfold. 8. When you stop chasing everyone's approval, you finally meet your true self. One of the quiet struggles many people carry inside their minds is the constant desire to be accepted by others. From childhood, people are taught to behave in ways that gain approval from family, teachers, friends, and society. They learn to adjust their personality, hide certain thoughts, and sometimes even ignore their true feelings simply to avoid rejection. Over time, this habit becomes so normal that many people stop noticing it. They begin shaping their lives around what others expect, rather than around what truly brings them peace and meaning. The Buddha understood this deeply. He taught that much of human suffering comes from attachment to praise and fear of criticism. When the mind becomes attached to approval, it starts living according to the expectations of others. Instead of asking, "What is wise?" or "What is meaningful for my life?" the mind begins asking, "What will people think about me?" This subtle shift can quietly control a person's decisions for many years. When your attention is constantly focused on pleasing others, you slowly lose connection with your own inner voice. Your choices begin reflecting what you believe will impress people rather than what truly aligns with your values. You may pursue goals that do not genuinely fulfill you. You may stay in situations that drain your energy simply because you fear how others might judge your decisions. This is why focusing on yourself becomes such an important step toward freedom. When you begin directing your attention inward, you start examining the motivations behind your actions. You begin asking honest questions about why you do certain things. Are you doing them because they bring growth and meaning into your life, or are you doing them because you want approval? At first, this awareness can feel uncomfortable because it reveals how much influence outside opinions may have had over your life. But this realization is not meant to create guilt or regret. Instead, it opens the door to a new kind of understanding. The moment you see how the desire for approval has shaped your behavior, you gain the power to slowly release its control. The Buddha taught that a wise person does not chase praise nor fear criticism. They simply observe both with calm awareness. Praise may come and go, and criticism may appear from time to time, but neither of these should control the direction of your life. When your actions are guided by wisdom and clarity, the opinions of others lose their ability to disturb your inner balance. As you practice focusing on your own growth instead of constantly seeking approval, something powerful begins to change inside you. Your mind becomes quieter because it is no longer constantly calculating how others might react. Your decisions become clearer because they come from reflection rather than from pressure. You begin feeling more authentic because you are no longer pretending to be someone you are not. This authenticity creates a different kind of confidence. It is not the loud confidence that tries to prove something to the world. Instead, it is a calm confidence that comes from knowing yourself. When you understand your values, your intentions, and your direction in life, you no longer feel the need to constantly explain yourself to others. Another important transformation happens as well. When you stop chasing approval, your relationships begin to change. You become less interested in superficial validation and more interested in genuine connection. You begin surrounding yourself with people who respect your growth rather than people who only approve of you when you behave in certain ways. This shift creates healthier relationships because they are built on honesty rather than performance. Instead of trying to impress others, you simply show up as your true self. And the people who truly belong in your life will appreciate that authenticity. Focusing on yourself also allows you to rediscover parts of yourself that may have been ignored for years. Many people carry dreams, interests, and ideas that they once suppressed because they believed others would not approve. When the mind becomes free from constant judgment, these parts of yourself begin to reappear. Curiosity returns, creativity returns. The joy of learning and exploring begins to grow again. The Buddha reminded his followers that self-awareness is one of the greatest forms of wisdom. When you understand yourself deeply, you stop living as a reflection of other people's expectations. Instead, you begin living according to your own understanding of what brings peace and growth. This does not mean ignoring advice or refusing to learn from others. Wisdom often grows through listening and learning, but there is an important difference between learning from others and being controlled by their approval. A wise person listens carefully, but ultimately makes decisions based on clarity and awareness. As you continue focusing on yourself and letting go of the need for constant approval, your inner world becomes more stable. You stop feeling anxious about how others perceive every action you take. You become more comfortable standing by your decisions because they come from thoughtful reflection. Over time, this stability creates a deep sense of freedom. You no longer feel trapped by the need to please everyone. You no longer feel obligated to follow paths that do not align with your values. Instead, your life becomes guided by understanding rather than by pressure. And in that freedom, something beautiful happens. You begin discovering your true self. Not the version shaped by expectations, not the version designed to impress others, but the genuine person that exists beneath years of comparison, pressure, and approval-seeking. The Buddha taught that true peace appears when the mind becomes free from unnecessary attachments. The desire for approval is one of those attachments. When it loosens its grip on the mind, space opens for clarity, wisdom, and authenticity to grow. This is why focusing on yourself is not selfish. It is a path towards self-understanding and balance. When you know yourself clearly, you become calmer, wiser, and more compassionate toward others as well. Your actions become more thoughtful, and your presence becomes more peaceful. In the end, the journey of focusing on yourself leads to a simple but powerful realization. You do not need the entire world to approve of your path in order to walk it with confidence. What truly matters is whether your mind is moving toward greater awareness, wisdom, and peace. And when you reach that point, you finally begin living as your true self rather than as the person the world expected you to be. 9. When you focus on your own path, life becomes simpler and clearer. Many people live with a constant feeling of confusion about the direction of their lives. They feel pulled in many different directions at the same time. One moment they are trying to follow their own dreams, and the next moment they are distracted by what others are doing. They see someone else succeeding in a certain field, and suddenly they question their own path. They see another person living a different lifestyle, and they begin wondering if they should change their direction as well. Over time, this constant comparison and distraction creates a deep sense of uncertainty. The mind becomes crowded with too many voices, too many expectations, and too many ideas about how life should look. The Buddha taught that much of human suffering comes from this restless wandering of the mind. When the mind constantly jumps from one desire to another, from one comparison to another, it becomes impossible to experience clarity. A distracted mind cannot see its true path clearly because it is always looking somewhere else. Instead of walking forward with steady awareness, it keeps turning around to observe what everyone else is doing. This is why focusing on yourself is such a powerful practice. When you decide to bring your attention back to your own life, many unnecessary complications begin to disappear. Instead of trying to follow 10 different directions at once, you begin paying attention to what truly matters for your growth. Your goals become clearer because they are no longer influenced by constant comparison. Your decisions become simpler because they come from reflection rather than pressure. When the mind stops chasing every new idea or opportunity it sees in others, it begins to develop stability. You start recognizing that your journey does not need to look like anyone else's journey. Some people grow quickly in certain areas of life, while others grow more slowly but deeply. Some paths are loud and visible, while other paths are quiet and gradual. When you focus on your own direction, you stop feeling the need to constantly measure your progress against others. The Buddha often emphasized the importance of walking your path with mindfulness. Mindfulness means paying full attention to the present moment rather than constantly worrying about the past or comparing yourself with others. When you apply this principle to your life, you begin noticing something important. Your growth becomes more meaningful when your attention is fully invested in what you are doing right now. Many people believe they must rush through life in order to keep up with others. They feel pressure to achieve certain milestones by certain ages, to match the success of their peers, or to follow trends that appear popular at the moment. But this constant rushing only creates stress and confusion. When you slow down and focus on your own path, you begin realizing that progress does not need to be rushed to be meaningful. Another powerful change happens when you stop constantly observing the lives of others. Your mind becomes quieter. Instead of thinking about what someone else is achieving, you begin thinking about what you can improve within yourself. You begin noticing the habits that strengthen your life and the habits that weaken it. This awareness allows you to make gradual improvements that lead to real growth over time. The Buddha compared the mind to a garden. If a gardener constantly looks over the fence to see how another garden is growing, they may neglect the care of their own plants. But when the gardener focuses fully on nurturing their own garden, watering it, protecting it, and patiently allowing it to grow, the garden eventually becomes strong and beautiful in its own way. The same principle applies to life. When you give your full attention to your own development, your life begins growing naturally in the direction that suits you best. Focusing on your path also reduces many unnecessary worries. People often stress themselves by thinking about how they appear in the eyes of others. They worry about whether they are moving fast enough, whether they are achieving enough, or whether they are impressing the people around them. But when your focus shifts inward, these worries slowly lose their importance. You begin understanding that your true responsibility is not to impress the world, but to develop your mind, your character, and your understanding of life. Over time, this inward focus creates a powerful sense of calm. Your mind stops jumping from one distraction to another. Instead, it begins moving steadily in one direction. Each day becomes an opportunity to take one more step forward in your own growth. The pressure to compete with others fades away, replaced by a quiet commitment to improving yourself. This simplicity brings a deep kind of freedom. You are no longer overwhelmed by endless expectations or distracted by every new trend. Instead, your life becomes guided by clarity. You understand what matters to you and what does not. You know which habits support your peace and which habits disturb it. The Buddha taught that wisdom grows when the mind becomes calm and focused. When you stop scattering your attention in many directions, your awareness deepens. You begin seeing situations more clearly and responding with greater understanding. Your decisions become thoughtful rather than impulsive because they come from a stable mind. As this clarity develops, you also become more patient with your own journey. You realize that growth is not a race against others. It is a gradual process of learning, adjusting, and developing wisdom over time. Some lessons take longer to understand, and some goals require steady effort over many years. But when your focus remains on your own path, these challenges become part of the journey rather than obstacles that discourage you. Eventually, you begin experiencing life in a very different way. Instead of feeling lost in the noise of comparison and expectation, you feel grounded in your own direction. Your mind becomes calmer because it is no longer chasing countless distractions. Your actions become more purposeful because they align with your understanding of what truly matters. The Buddha reminded his followers that peace is not something complicated or distant. Often, it appears when the mind stops creating unnecessary confusion. When you focus on your own path, life becomes simpler, clearer, and more meaningful. And in that simplicity, you discover a quiet truth. The moment you stop trying to walk everyone else's path and begin walking your own with awareness, your life begins unfolding in a way that feels natural, steady, and deeply peaceful. 10. Real power appears when your mind stops looking everywhere else. One of the quiet reasons many people feel mentally exhausted today is because their attention is constantly scattered. The mind jumps from one person to another, from one situation to another, from one opinion to another. A person wakes up and immediately begins thinking about messages, notifications, what others are doing, what others are saying, and how their life compares to the lives they see around them. Without realizing it, their mind becomes a place filled with noise and distraction. In such a state, it becomes extremely difficult to experience clarity, stability, or peace. The Buddha understood this restless nature of the human mind very well. He often explained that a wandering mind is one of the main causes of suffering. When the mind is always chasing something outside itself, it loses the ability to remain steady. It begins reacting to everything it sees, hears, or imagines. A small comment can disturb it, a small comparison can create insecurity, and a small challenge can feel overwhelming. This is why focusing on yourself is not simply a motivational idea, it is a deep practice of mental discipline. When you begin bringing your attention back to your own mind, your own growth, and your own path, you slowly begin gathering the scattered pieces of your attention. Instead of allowing your energy to flow in many different directions, you start directing it toward understanding and improving your own life. At first, this change may feel unfamiliar. Many people are so used to looking outward that they rarely spend time observing their own thoughts. When they begin turning inward, they may notice how restless the mind actually is. Thoughts appear one after another, sometimes without any clear purpose. Memories, worries, and imagined conversations pass through the mind like a constant stream. But the Buddha taught that simply observing the mind is the first step toward gaining mastery over it. When you watch your thoughts instead of automatically believing them, something important begins to happen. You start realizing that not every thought deserves your attention. Some thoughts are simply habits created by years of comparison, fear, or insecurity. As you continue practicing this inward awareness, your mind slowly becomes calmer. Instead of reacting to every thought or every outside event, you begin developing the ability to pause. This pause creates space between your thoughts and your actions. Within that space, wisdom begins to grow. When your mind becomes less reactive, your life begins to change in powerful ways. Situations that once felt overwhelming become easier to handle. Criticism from others loses much of its emotional impact. Unexpected challenges no longer create immediate panic because your mind has learned to observe before reacting. This inner stability is the beginning of real power. Many people think power comes from controlling situations or influencing other people, but the Buddha explained that the greatest victory is the victory over your own mind. When you can remain calm in difficult situations, patient in uncertain moments, and clear in confusing circumstances, you possess a strength that cannot easily be shaken. Another transformation also begins to appear when your focus returns to yourself. Your decisions become clearer. Instead of constantly asking what others expect from you, you begin asking what truly supports your growth and well-being. Your choices become guided by understanding rather than by pressure. For example, many people spend years pursuing goals that were never truly their own. They follow certain careers, lifestyles, or expectations because they believe those paths will gain approval from others. But when they focus inward, they begin recognizing which directions genuinely align with their values and which directions were chosen only to impress the world. This realization can feel both challenging and liberating. It may require letting go of certain habits or expectations that once felt important. But it also opens the door to living a more authentic life. When your actions align with your true understanding, your life begins to feel more meaningful and less forced. The Buddha also taught that attention is like sunlight for the mind. Whatever you focus on grows stronger. If your attention constantly focuses on comparison, competition, and judgment, those qualities become stronger inside your mind. But if your attention focuses on awareness, discipline, patience, and understanding, those qualities begin to grow instead. When you direct your attention toward your own development, your mind gradually becomes a place of learning rather than a place of constant reaction. Each experience becomes an opportunity to observe how your thoughts and emotions respond. Instead of blaming the outside world for every difficulty, you begin asking what the situation can teach you about yourself. Over time, this habit of reflection builds deep wisdom. You begin recognizing patterns that once controlled your reactions. You see how certain fears influenced your choices in the past. You understand how attachment to approval shaped many of your decisions. With this understanding, you gain the power to gradually change these patterns. As your awareness deepens, another important shift begins to occur. The outside world no longer feels like something you must constantly compete with. Instead, it becomes something you observe and interact with more calmly. You begin realizing that your true responsibility is not to control everything around you, but to guide your own mind wisely. This realization brings a profound sense of freedom. When you stop looking everywhere else for validation, direction, or identity, your mind becomes lighter. You stop chasing endless distractions because you recognize that peace comes from clarity within yourself. The Buddha's teachings remind us that the mind can either be a prison or a source of liberation. When the mind constantly looks outward with attachment and comparison, it becomes trapped in cycles of dissatisfaction. But when the mind turns inward with awareness and discipline, it begins discovering a quiet strength that was always present. Real power does not appear through dramatic changes in the outside world. It appears slowly as the mind becomes steady, aware, and focused. Each moment of self-awareness strengthens this power. Each moment of calm observation builds greater clarity. Eventually, you begin experiencing life in a completely different way. Instead of feeling pulled in every direction by external influences, you move through life with quiet stability. Your thoughts become more organized, your emotions become easier to understand, and your actions become guided by wisdom rather than impulse. When the mind stops constantly looking everywhere else and finally learns to focus inward, it discovers something extraordinary. The strength it was searching for in the outside world was always waiting within. And once that strength is recognized, the direction of your entire life begins to change. That is why the Buddha encouraged people to know themselves deeply, because the person who understands and guides their own mind possesses a kind of power that no circumstance, no opinion, and no external challenge can easily take away. 11. When you build yourself in silence, your life begins to transform. One of the most powerful changes that can happen in a person's life begins very quietly. It does not start with loud announcements, public recognition, or dramatic moments that attract attention from others. Instead, it begins in silence. It begins when a person decides to stop spending their energy trying to prove themselves to the world and instead starts focusing on building their own mind, their discipline, and their character. Many people feel a strong urge to show others what they are doing. They want people to see their progress, notice their achievements, and acknowledge their efforts. Because of this, they often speak about their plans before those plans have even taken shape. They talk about their goals, their ambitions, and the changes they want to make in their lives. But often, this constant need to be seen and recognized weakens the very focus that is needed for real growth. The Buddha taught that true transformation does not happen through noise and display. It happens through awareness and quiet effort. When a person begins focusing deeply on their own growth, they naturally become less concerned with constantly showing their progress to others. Their attention moves away from approval and toward understanding. Building yourself in silence allows your energy to remain concentrated on what truly matters. When you are not constantly explaining your plans, defending your choices, or seeking validation, your mind becomes more stable. You can observe your habits more clearly and begin improving them with patience and discipline. At first, this process may feel unusual because the modern world encourages constant sharing and constant visibility. People are often encouraged to show every step of their journey to others. But the Buddha's wisdom suggests something different. He taught that real development begins within the mind, and inner development grows best in an environment of calm reflection rather than constant attention. When you work quietly on improving yourself, you begin noticing small but meaningful changes in your life. Your habits slowly become stronger. You begin managing your time more wisely. You start becoming more aware of your reactions in difficult situations. Instead of immediately reacting with frustration or anger, you begin pausing and observing your emotions. These changes may not be visible to the outside world at first, but they are extremely powerful. Each small improvement strengthens your inner foundation. Over time, these improvements begin shaping your character in ways that cannot be easily shaken by external circumstances. The Buddha often compared personal growth to planting seeds in a garden. When a gardener plants a seed, they do not immediately expect a tree to appear. They understand that growth requires patience. The seed must remain under the soil, unseen by the world, while it slowly develops roots beneath the surface. Only after those roots become strong does the plant begin to appear above the ground. In the same way, when you focus on building yourself in silence, you are strengthening the roots of your character. You are developing patience, awareness, discipline, and clarity within your mind. These qualities may grow quietly, but once they become strong, they support everything else in your life. Another important benefit of working in silence is that it protects your focus. When people constantly announce their goals to others, they often receive many different opinions and expectations. Some people may encourage them, while others may criticize or doubt their efforts. These reactions can create unnecessary pressure and distraction. But when your focus remains inward, your motivation becomes stronger and more stable. You are no longer working to prove something to the world. Instead, you are working because you understand the value of growth itself. Your effort becomes sincere rather than performative. The Buddha also taught that silence allows wisdom to develop. When the mind is not constantly speaking or reacting, it has the opportunity to observe more deeply. You begin understanding your patterns of thinking more clearly. You notice the habits that strengthen your life and the habits that quietly weaken it. Through this awareness, you begin making wiser choices. You become more patient when facing difficulties. You become more thoughtful when making decisions. Instead of rushing through life trying to impress others, you move forward with steady intention. As this quiet growth continues, people around you may begin noticing changes, even though you never announce them. Your calmness in difficult situations becomes visible. Your discipline in your daily habits becomes noticeable. Your confidence begins appearing naturally through the way you carry yourself. This type of transformation is powerful because it is genuine. It is not created through temporary motivation or external pressure. It grows from a deep understanding of yourself and a steady commitment to becoming wiser and stronger. The Buddha explained that a wise person does not seek to shine in the eyes of the world. Instead, they seek to develop clarity within their own mind. When your mind becomes clear and disciplined, your actions naturally reflect that clarity. Your life becomes guided by understanding rather than by the need for recognition. Over time, building yourself in silence creates a sense of independence that many people never experience. You no longer feel the need to constantly prove your worth to others. You understand your own progress because you see the changes within yourself. This inner confidence becomes far more stable than confidence that depends on praise or approval. You also begin experiencing greater peace. When your attention is not constantly focused on how others perceive you, your mind becomes lighter. You can concentrate fully on learning, improving, and understanding life more deeply. Eventually, you realize that the most powerful transformations often happen quietly. The world may not notice every step of your growth, but each step strengthens your foundation. Each day of discipline, reflection, and patience adds another layer of strength to your character. The Buddha's teachings remind us that real change does not need an audience. It only requires awareness, effort, and patience. When you commit to improving yourself quietly and consistently, your life begins to transform in ways that are deeper and more lasting than any temporary recognition. And as that transformation continues, you begin experiencing something extraordinary. The strength you once tried to prove to the world begins to appear naturally within you. Your mind becomes calmer, your actions become wiser, and your presence becomes more peaceful. This is the quiet power of building yourself in silence. It is a path that does not seek attention, but gradually creates a life filled with clarity, discipline, and inner strength. 12. When you truly focus on yourself, you stop fighting the world. One of the deepest transformations that can happen in a person's life begins when they finally understand a simple but powerful truth. Much of the struggle they feel does not come from the world itself, but from the way their mind constantly resists what is happening. Many people move through life feeling as if they are in a constant battle. They fight against situations they cannot control. They fight against the opinions of others, and sometimes they even fight against their own thoughts and emotions. This constant resistance slowly exhausts the mind. The Buddha taught that suffering often grows when the mind tries to control everything around it. People want situations to unfold exactly as they imagine. They want others to behave according to their expectations. They want life to follow a clear and predictable path. But reality rarely moves according to these plans. People behave in ways we cannot always understand. Circumstances change unexpectedly, and challenges appear when we least expect them. When the mind constantly fights against these changes, it creates tension and frustration. Focusing on yourself begins to change this pattern. Instead of trying to control everything outside of you, your attention shifts toward understanding your own mind. You begin noticing how your reactions shape your experience of situations. Two people can face the same difficulty, yet one becomes overwhelmed while the other remains calm. The difference often lies not in the situation itself, but in the state of the mind observing it. When you begin observing your mind more carefully, you start recognizing the ways it creates unnecessary conflict. You may notice how quickly the mind judges situations as good or bad. You may see how easily it becomes attached to certain outcomes and how strongly it reacts when those outcomes do not happen. This awareness allows you to step back and see your thoughts more clearly rather than being immediately controlled by them. The Buddha explained that wisdom begins when a person understands the difference between what can be controlled and what cannot. Many of the frustrations people experience come from trying to control things that are beyond their influence. They may try to change other people's opinions, force situations to unfold in a particular way, or hold on to outcomes that are no longer possible. When these attempts fail, the mind becomes filled with anger or disappointment. However, when you focus on yourself, your perspective begins to shift. You start understanding that your true responsibility lies in how you respond to life, rather than in controlling every detail of it. You cannot always control what happens, but you can develop the ability to respond with patience, clarity, and understanding. This shift creates a powerful sense of freedom. When you stop trying to control every external situation, your mind becomes lighter. Instead of reacting with frustration each time life moves in an unexpected direction, you begin observing situations with curiosity and calm awareness. Challenges no longer feel like enemies you must defeat. Instead, they become opportunities to strengthen your understanding and resilience. The Buddha often encouraged people to cultivate acceptance, but acceptance does not mean passively allowing life to push you in any direction. It means understanding the nature of reality and responding wisely to it. When you accept that change is part of life, you stop wasting energy fighting against what cannot be changed. Instead, you direct your effort toward improving the parts of life that are within your control. For example, you may not be able to control how others behave toward you, but you can control how long you allow their behavior to disturb your mind. You may not be able to prevent every difficulty from appearing in your life, but you can develop the inner strength to face those difficulties with calm awareness. As you continue focusing on yourself and practicing this awareness, your relationship with the world begins to change. Situations that once created strong emotional reactions begin to lose their intensity. The opinions of others no longer control your sense of self-worth. The successes and failures that once felt overwhelming begin to appear as natural parts of life's flow. Another important transformation happens as well. When you stop constantly fighting the world, you begin understanding it more clearly. Instead of reacting immediately with judgment or frustration, you start observing situations with greater patience. You become more compassionate toward others because you recognize that many people are also struggling with their own fears and expectations. The Buddha taught that peace grows when the mind becomes free from unnecessary resistance. When you stop trying to force reality into a rigid shape, you begin experiencing life more openly. You allow situations to unfold while maintaining awareness of your own thoughts and actions. This awareness creates stability within the mind. Instead of being pulled into every emotional storm that appears around you, you remain grounded in your understanding. Difficult moments may still arise, but they no longer control your inner state as strongly as they once did. Over time, this calm stability becomes one of the greatest strengths a person can develop. While others may become overwhelmed by sudden challenges, your mind remains steady. While others may react impulsively to criticism or conflict, you respond with thoughtful awareness. The Buddha described this state of mind as a form of inner balance. It is the ability to remain centered even when the world around you changes. This balance does not mean life becomes perfect or free from difficulty. Instead, it means your mind becomes capable of navigating those difficulties without losing its clarity. As you continue walking this path of focusing on yourself, you begin realizing that life does not need to feel like a constant struggle. Much of the tension that once filled your mind came from resisting what you could not control. When that resistance fades, space opens for calm understanding. Your energy becomes directed toward growth rather than toward endless conflict. Your mind becomes quieter because it is no longer constantly arguing with reality. And within that quiet space, wisdom begins to appear. The Buddha's teachings remind us that true strength is not found in winning battles against the world. It is found in understanding the mind so deeply that those battles are no longer necessary. When you learn to guide your thoughts, accept change, and respond to life with awareness, the struggle slowly disappears. And in its place, something far more valuable begins to grow, a peaceful mind that moves through life with clarity, patience, and quiet confidence. In the end, the greatest transformation in life does not begin with changing the world around you. It begins with changing the direction of your attention. Many people spend years chasing approval, comparing themselves to others, reacting to every opinion, and trying to control situations that are far beyond their control. In doing so, they slowly lose connection with the one place where real change can actually happen, their own mind. The teachings of the Buddha remind us that peace, strength, and clarity are not things that come from outside achievements or from the approval of others. They grow quietly inside the mind of a person who learns to observe themselves with honesty and awareness. When you stop constantly looking at what everyone else is doing and begin focusing on your own growth, your life begins to move in a completely different direction. Focusing on yourself does not mean ignoring the world or becoming selfish. It means understanding that your thoughts, your reactions, and your choices shape the quality of your life. When you protect your energy, when you improve your habits, when you observe your mind with patience, and when you stop chasing unnecessary validation, you begin building a life that is grounded in wisdom rather than distraction. Gradually, the noise of comparison begins to fade. The pressure to impress others begins to lose its power. The endless struggle to control everything around you begins to dissolve. In its place, something far more valuable begins to appear: a calm mind, a clear direction, and a quiet confidence that does not depend on anyone else's approval. The moment you truly focus on yourself, you stop being pulled in 100 different directions by the expectations of the world. Instead, you begin walking your own path with awareness and purpose. And when a person walks their path with clarity, discipline, and inner peace, their life naturally becomes stronger, simpler, and more meaningful. That is the wisdom behind this simple but powerful truth. Real power begins the moment you stop chasing the world and start mastering your own mind.